Marty Brennaman apparently was dialed into. Oh, hey.
Hey, how are you?
I'm all right. How you doing?
Not too bad. Alfaro Boreal.
How about that?
I'm all over it, man.
Did you watch any of the FC Cincinnati game on Saturday? I know you were driving back from Ashland, Kentucky, but did you have it tuned in? They're on the radio, local radio. They just signed a deal.
Let me preface my answer by explaining to you that I ran into a couple the other day, people I didn't know. They recognized me, or the man did. And the woman, almost embarrassingly, said to me, "I'm not a baseball fan. I'm sorry I did not recognize you." And I said to her what I say to all people, not everybody can be a baseball fan. And that doesn't bother me. And I don't think any less of you, and you don't have to apologize. That's my take on soccer. That's my take. God bless the people that like the sport. I don't think it'll ever be what they want it to be because of the lack of scoring in it. And so I'm not a fan, and I never have been a fan and never will be a fan, just like I'm not an ice hockey fan. I'm steak and potatoes. I'm baseball, football, basketball, and golf. Stops there.
And lacrosse.
Alfaro Boreal, though, I'll pay attention to him. And lacrosse, I'm sorry. Absolutely. I have a vested interest in that sport. Thank God there's a member of the Brennaman family that has a scintilla of athletic ability. And he's got more than that, but it ain't much more. There's nothing more than that outside of someone named Luke Brennaman.
Well, Polly Brennaman was a runner at Notre Dame. I mean, she's got some
and I apologize for that. That's right. Very athletic. That's obviously where Luke gets his ability from, because he sure as hell didn't get it from me, nor does he get it from Bingo.
All right, hey, we were talking at the very beginning. We led off the show with baseball, and, we can talk about the outcome of games and that kind of thing, and that's fine. They're spring training games. But the real story, without a doubt, the rule changes. Yes. I mean, right from the get-go, Dad, right from the start. We are seeing an impact, not only in a little bit of way, but a huge, as far as the time of the game. Let's start there. You and I both know, you've forgotten more about it than I'll know. Most of the time in recent years, you go to a spring training game, and with all the pitching changes and the player movement and so forth, you're looking at 3 hours, 3:10, 3:20, whatever it might be. I mean, these games are in the 2:20s, 2:30s, 2:40s.
Well, I mean, yesterday's Reds game, they lose 7-6 to the San Francisco Giants, 25 hits in the game, 13 runs, and it was 2 hours and 43 minutes. I mean, that game is 320, 325 all over it, with the number of pitchers that worked in the game. And it's especially amazing in spring training because, at least from a Reds perspective, and I think probably a lot of other teams, I think the Giants were similar yesterday, you got a different pitcher every inning here in the first round of games. Then you bump a guy up to 2 innings, and then after a while he's 3, and then he's ready to go. But I would remind people that I said a year and a half ago, that if they ever implement the pitch clock, it will make a radical difference. We've seen it in the minor leagues, and I really don't know why people are surprised that it's working as well as it is at the major league level. I've been very impressed. The game has taken on a certain energy that it has not had in recent years, and I think it's going to be the greatest single thing that basically I think an inept hierarchy in Major League Baseball has hit upon, and that is a pitch clock, and I think it's going to be an incredible success.
The thing I didn't realize, and shame on me, I had paid so much attention to all the different rule changes, and we're going to stick with the pitch clock part of it here for just a second and get to a couple of other ones. But the batter being ready to hit within 8 seconds, I think that's every bit as important. You tell me if you agree or disagree. I think that's every bit as important as a pitcher throwing it with 15 seconds with nobody on or 20 seconds with a runner on.
No, I agree with that too. And what has amazed me is that when you consider the incredibly radical workings of a hitter because of the pitch clock, more so him, I think, than the pitchers, really, there have been not that many infractions. And I've been, we had one game that was a walk-off strike three on Saturday that ended a game. So I just think that the way the players have approached it, they should be congratulated. Obviously, guys that have spent the last however many years in Major League Baseball and have not been a part of what's gone on in an experimental sense in the minor leagues to prepare the big league players for this, they have prepared themselves mentally. There have been very few, I think 1.76 infractions through the first two games, or at least through Saturday and Sunday, to begin the spring training games. I think it's marvelous. I congratulate the players and everybody involved with getting these guys ready and making them understand, as we talked about last week, the umpires have been instructed, don't give anybody any break at all. If there is an infraction, call it to get them ready for when it really will count. And I think that's everybody should be congratulated after the first weekend of spring training games with the way this thing has gone on with so few infractions to begin the spring training schedule.
One of the things that I wondered about beforehand, and it caught my eye in the Reds game on Saturday, I believe it was. I'm sure it was Saturday, where, there all of a sudden is a strategy that if teams really pay attention to what's going on, and you have to have players and managers and coaches that are all really focused on how many times the guy's thrown over to a base, whatever it might be. But Jonathan India had the wherewithal, and I think you're going to start to see this if players and teams are smart, where they recognize the situation, they're looking up at the pitch clock, and they realize as that thing whittles down to 3, 2, and now all of a sudden they can take off to steal a base. India stole third base without even a throw down there. And I think that's something that teams can really take advantage of from a strategy standpoint now moving forward. It'll be interesting to see some of these little things that can kind of be arteries that bleed off the main vein of these different rules.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. But by the same token, though, Thom, I found it very interesting yesterday in the Reds game. Buck Farmer was pitching in relief. I forget who the hitter was. That's immaterial to what happened. And he's ready to go. He is set to go. I think there were the clock was approaching 15 seconds, and the plate umpire was not even behind the plate yet. Surewater is his name. He was just casually walking up to home plate. And here Buck Farmer is, and he's ready to go as per the new rule. And now the umpire's not at the plate. And this is the type of thing that's going to, and Farmer, a very bright guy, made the comment. He said, no matter how prepared you think you are, from a player perspective, from a managerial perspective, from an umpire's perspective, there are going to be chinks in the armor. And there was a meeting after the inning ended. I think David Bell was out there. Buck Farmer was there with the plate umpire. And I think the plate umpire realized he screwed up. Mm-hmm. And he was not ready. With all the emphasis being on the pitcher and the catcher, he was not ready when the pitcher and the catcher were. So I think you're going to see an awful lot of things come into play that maybe we've not seen yet. We've been so complimentary about the way things have gone, and justifiably so. But I still think there's going to be more to come on some of these rules, if not every one of them.
All right, let me ask you, shifting gears a little bit to the Manny Machado deal. He was given, I believe it was, a 10-year contract for $300 million a while back, or whatever it might be, at 5 years left at $150 million. He had said he's going to opt out at the end of the year. He gets a new deal, 11 years. He's 30 years old, 11 years, $350 million. That deal will carry him, obviously, till he's 41 years old. When did we get to the point where guys were given contracts and they're allowed to opt out, but a team is certainly never allowed to opt out? If all of a sudden a guy gets hurt and he can't play again, you got to pay him for the next 10 years.
Well, I don't, excuse me. I blame the owners for that. I mean, I don't feel sorry for them. If they're stupid enough to give a guy a contract with an opt-out in there, whenever it might be, And then they're faced with that type of situation. We're not ready. This guy's going to leave. We didn't think he would, but he is. I don't feel sorry for them at all. They agreeably signed that contract and give Machado an option after X number of years. I don't feel sorry for them at all. I am constantly amazed that we are seeing teams continue to give guys 10-year contracts, especially a guy like, I don't give a damn how good Manny Machado is. That is absolute lunacy. And nobody learns from everybody that gets caught up in it. And if I, as a well-heeled owner, see you as a well-heeled owner giving a guy a contract like that, I've got no choice but to do it if I want to stay in the hunt. And so I don't feel sorry for the owners giving these massive contracts out, and especially at the tail end of one, when a guy's got a year or two to go and he has clearly lost a lot of the abilities that allowed him to get that kind of contract to begin with. Then he becomes a liability. You can't get rid of him because nobody else wants him. You can't trade him. I don't feel sorry for them at all. I say God bless the players and the people that represent them are smart enough to get an owner to give a player a contract like that. And at the end of 8 or 9 years, whatever it is, and Manny Machado's got 2 years to go, and he's a glimmer of what he had been on the day that he signed this contract. I don't want to hear people bitching and complaining because if you're with that ball club, because he's no longer the player that he once was.
You know, Tony Clark, the Major League Baseball Players Association, has opened up a satellite office out in Arizona. They're based out in New York City.
Right.
Tony Clark's a very smart guy. He's a very well-spoken
Sure
guy. He's a good man. He played with the Diamondbacks here for a year or two when I was still announcing the games, and I don't know how you don't like the guy if you spend any time around him. His job is the head of the Players Union. He's asked about it over the weekend. This new economic reform committee that was formed by the baseball owners to try and look at the disparity between what, say, the Mets are spending and what the Oakland A's or Tampa Bay Rays or the Cincinnati Reds are spending. And where that goes, nobody knows. But Tony Clark comes out flatly and says, not a chance, never going to happen, no salary cap. We're never going to listen to it. Did you have any reaction to that?
No, none. I'd have been shocked if he just said we'd be happy to sit down and talk to them about coming up with some type of cap that will be beneficial both to the player union and baseball ownership. He's saying exactly what the head of a union should say. Now, whether or not maybe he has some idea about how to work this thing out to put the game on sounder ground, physically speaking, but publicly speaking, I was not shocked at all that he made that comment. And I think he'll be steadfast in his opinion if that is what he truly believes. The players the game has an incredible problem, or at the end of that word, parenthesis, an S on the end of it. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know how you can come up with a model from a fiscal standpoint that is going to be beneficial to this game more so than it is today. I don't know what they're going to do. I think it's quite honestly, I think this committee that naturally Rob Manfred, pontifically announced, I think it's all eyewash because I don't know what this group of people can come up with that will be acceptable as far as a union is concerned once they sit down at the end of this current contract and talk about what's going to be happening going forward.
All right, let's shift gears now to what you spend most of your time doing this time of the year, and that is college basketball. Your beloved North Carolina Tar Heels, Paul, they get a huge win over Virginia, but you were still saying off the air when Casey asked you, they're not getting in. That's what you said, Paul.
No, they got to win the ACC tournament. I think you'd probably agree with that, Marty. I mean, Virginia's a good win,
not.
but it's – what?
I do not agree with that.
You think they can get in without winning the ACC tournament?
I think if they beat Florida State tonight and they beat Duke in Chapel Hill on Saturday and they win the first game of the ACC, their first game of the ACC tournament, they're in. And I say that, and I hate to say it, but I think it's true. They're going to get in with three more wins on top of the two that they already have, and they're going to get in because they've got Tar Heels across the front of their uniform.
Yeah, maybe. I think
Don't back down, Paul.
I just
Do not back down.
I don't think the committee values conference tournament wins as much as we seem to think that they do. But I did say on the rebound rundown, I said the name on the front of the jersey is probably going to count for something at the end of the day. But I just – the thing that North Carolina does have going for them, which I pointed out to you, Casey, is they don't have any bad losses. Like, they don't have that quad 3, quad 4 loss. All their losses are good losses. So, yeah.
And I was just saying this to you earlier. I thought they had a really good chance of winning the tournament anyways. I mean, the only team in their way, in my opinion, is Miami. They already beat Virginia once.
Yeah.
And Duke is usually a good game. It's a good rivalry game. So
I guess that goes back, Marty, what's your confidence level on this Duke game?
My confidence level is pretty good. I mean, they played them reasonably well in Chapel and at Durham. They didn't get blown out by Duke in that game. So I have confidence. Now, if they get beat by Florida State tonight, and I tell you one thing, they better not overlook Florida State. Despite the fact that they've already lost 20 games, they came back in Miami from 25 down in the first half on Saturday to beat them on a three-pointer at the buzzer. So I don't think you can walk in there and say, well, we can beat this team. You better go out and play. And that's been a problem that Carolina's had all year long. There are people who have recently said, and I don't know that I disagree with it, Hubert Davis is a nice guy. But Hubert Davis has created an atmosphere where that team is very, very soft. And you don't see Carolina players diving on the floor for loose balls. The only one that busts his butt for my money day in and day out, night in and night out is a kid in the middle. I feel sorry for him. He doesn't get the ball enough offensively. He battles his butt off for rebounds. I mean, his numbers speak for themselves. I don't think he's going to be a good pro player, but I think he's had a great season, and you can't say that about the rest of those clowns on that team. I had a guy jump me the other day on the internet, on Twitter, and he made a comment that Hubert Davis was quoted in his post-game interview the other day that to criticize these kids is unconscionable. I'm paraphrasing now. And it kind of lit me up a little bit because I retaliated by saying that's the most ridiculous comment I've ever heard. Let's face one thing now. When I was doing college basketball and doing the NCAA tournament, the regionals, and the finals, I would never criticize a college player, ever. But once the NIL kicked in, as I said in this tweet, it's a new ball game now because these guys are professional players. So if I feel inclined to criticize them, I don't have a problem with it at all. Guy has never responded to what I said.
Well, that's not a surprise in any form or fashion. It'd be a surprise if he actually had his name attached to whatever his Twitter account was.
Oh, he did. He did. Yeah.
Okay, well, then good for him. Okay, and then there is, as I've been telling Paul and Casey for weeks, they won't listen to me. They look down their nose when I said this, and I said this to you yesterday. Look out for my man Cal. He's got it going on down there with Big Blue Nation. They got it going on.
I agree. I don't disagree at all. I think if you've got to pick a time of year to kick it into gear, and we saw Carolina do that last year, I think Kentucky's playing the best basketball they played all year long. But if you go back and look at some of the early days in which I spent with you on this program, and the Kentucky thing came up when they were going bad. This is a month and a half, 7 weeks ago, whatever the case might be. I said, don't worry about it. They're going to be fine. And they, right now, are fine. They're playing the best basketball they played all year long. I think the kids probably they're at a confidence level now that they've not experienced the entire season. I don't think anybody will dispute the fact that they certainly have the talent. So we'll see how it plays out the rest of the way. But they are playing extremely well without any question at all.
All right, Dad. Guys, anything else on your mind today? We're going to let the Hall of Famer get rolling. He's got places to be, people to see. You're going out there, Arizona, out there with all your highfalutin buddies out there in Red Spring training.
That's not true, but I'll be out there.
What's not
I'll
true?
be there. Well, who you talking about? Jim Day and all those guys?
Yeah, all your highfalutin pals.
Jim Day,
Chris
my
Welsh.
buddy.
Chris Welsh. You'll be out there with him. You guys will probably play golf together.
I'm not even taking my golf clubs out there.
Well, why not?
I'm just not.
Okay.
I'm just not. It's too much to try to drag those things 3/4 of the way across the country or halfway across the country. I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I got plenty of time to play golf when I come back.
Your buddy Everett did not jump on today, so no Everett today, no questions today. What were you going to say, Casey?
You know where Everett is?
Where?
No. You know where he is?
No.
He's interviewing for a damn job. That's where Everett is.
What are you looking at here, Casey? What are you looking at? You want me to run the video of a guy hitting a home run?
I was just going to ask, how did he feel about McClain, that first spring training game? I don't know if you watched it at all. What your thoughts are?
the
I
at-bat.
know a lot of. Go ahead.
You know, he's 2 years removed from being their number one pick.
Yep.
They are so inundated with infielders, specifically shortstops. You know, last year he and Ailey Dela Cruz would go back and forth. One day one would play second, one would play short, then they do it again. This kid may be a dark horse. So much ink has been devoted to some of these kids that they picked up through trade in the last year or so. But this kid, he's gotten off to a great start in spring training. We'll see how. I'm not saying that he'll make the club, and maybe he will. But I think that he could certainly change the minds of people in the organization that are more interested in some of the newcomers than they are a guy that, did not have a great year last year. No, he's got power. He had 17 home runs last year, even though he had a low batting average. But I'm going to keep my eye on him and see how the spring works for him, because this kid may be one that just has matured quicker than they thought he would, and all of a sudden now he's become a major factor.
Okay, my last question, this might be a little long-winded and convoluted, but how many games in spring training, or just the spring games in general, are you watching and you're seeing a player play very well before you go, okay, it's time, or okay, maybe he deserves to move up and get some playing time? What am I looking for here? If McClain does this, another 5 times, 10 times? Like, what am I looking for here in a player like this?
That's a good question. Good question, Casey. I after I'd been around a while and realized that, I get all excited over a kid doing what he did on the first day of the spring and say, well, you never know about it. I think you got to wait until he starts facing certifiable major league pitching. Yeah, that home run and the single that he had the other day came off guys that are probably going to be in the minor leagues when the season begins. I think you need to draw an opinion against for a young man or against a young man, whatever the case might be, when he starts seeing big league pitching. And once he starts seeing big league pitching, if he continues to swing the bat, then I think you need to kind of move him up just a bit in your thinking as far as whether or not he'll one day be a big league player in Cincinnati.
Okay. All right, Casey, good stuff there. Got high praise from the Hall of Famer. And by the way, Dad, before we let you go, Everett did jump in. He wishes you safe travels. He looks at you as sort of a life coach, to borrow his terminology. And he says that Marty is as positive. Now, help me here. I hope I'm not going off the rails, because I don't know this stuff.
No, this is good.
Okay, he says Marty is as positive and uplifting as Snape, S-N-A-P-E, classic Slytherin.
Well,
No thoughts on that?
I feel honored. I just feel honored. That's all. That's feel honored.
Well, we got to put together a lunch sometime when you get back from Arizona with Everett.
Well, I have every intention in the world of following up on that.
Okay. All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Safe travels. Godspeed ahead out to the Valley of the Sun.
All right, bud. I'll be talking with you.
All right.
Casey,
Be
Paul,
good.
take care, boys. Stay in good health.
See you, Marty.
See you, Marty.
All right, man.
Boy,
Thanks.
high praise for you, Casey.